The air inside the grand chamber of Prime hung thick and silent, like the moment before lightning strikes. 200 alien species filled the vast, floating amphitheater, their many eyes fixed on the central platform. Some had eyes on stalks, others glowed softly in the dim light, and a few didn't seem to have eyes at all. Yet they watched. They all watched. At the center stood High Sovereign of the Dominion of. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with deep purple skin that shimmered like oil on water. His horns curved back like scythes, and his voice, when he spoke, echoed not just through the chamber but through every translator bead worn by every delegate. It was a voice built to command galaxies. "People of the conquered," he began, his tone slow and heavy, "for too long we have ignored the shadow growing at the edge of our peace, a shadow called humanity." A ripple moved through the crowd, whispers in 100 tongues, antennae twitched, fins flared, many species shifted in their seats, uneasy. General stood in the human delegation pod near the back. She wore a simple gray uniform with no medals, though she had more than anyone in the room. Her dark hair was pulled tight, her jaw set. She didn't frown. She didn't glare. She just watched, her brown eyes sharp as flint. Swept his clawed hand toward the human section. "You welcomed them," he said, his voice rising like storm waves. "You gave them a seat at this table, and what have they done in return? They have broken the oldest law, the Prime Accords. They have awakened the weapon we all feared would never return." He paused, the silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight. "They have unleashed dread." A gasp ran through the chamber. Some delegates recoiled. A few rose to their feet. One small, insect-like diplomat fainted and was quickly carried away. Dread, the name alone carried weight. In ancient records it was spoken only in warnings. A weapon so terrible it could swallow stars. A ghost engine from humanity's forgotten past, said to have turned whole planets into silent tombs. No one knew what it truly was, only that it was death wrapped in human steel. Turned fully toward the human pod now, his gaze locking onto. "And who commands this horror?" he boomed. "Who dares stand at its helm? The so-called hero of the Void War's general. It is she who gave the order. It is she who must answer." Every eye in the chamber snapped too. She didn't move. Inside, her mind raced. Dread, the name made no sense. She'd heard old Earth War songs mention dreadnought battalions, rapid strike fleets from the Mars secession wars 3 centuries ago. But that was history, dust, not a weapon, not a monster. Yet here, across the galaxy, the name had twisted into myth. And now, myth was being used as a weapon against her people. The council speaker, a silver-scaled diplomat from the conquered, cleared her throat through 3 layered vocal cords. "General," she said, her voice calm but firm, "do you deny the existence of dread?" Stepped forward. She didn't need a voice amplifier. Her voice, clear and steady, carried across the chamber on its own. "I do," she said simply. A murmur rose. Some sounded doubtful, others angry. Laughed, a deep, rattling sound like stones grinding in a tomb. "Of course she denies it. Would you admit to holding the galaxy's throat in your hand?" Kept her eyes on him. "If I held such a weapon, Sovereign, I wouldn't need to hide it. I'd use it to stop tyrants like you." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Several delegates gasped. Eyes narrowed, his pupils thinning to red slits. The speaker raised a webbed hand. "Order. This is not a battlefield. General, the Council has received intelligence by 3 neutral observers that a human war fleet activated a device matching the historical descriptions of dread near the Expanse 3 cycles ago. Entire sensor grids went dark. 2 mining colonies vanished from all scans." Nodded slowly. "I know of the incident. It was a training exercise. Our new stealth corvettes use quantum shadow tech. It disrupts sensors, that's all. No colonies were harmed. We've offered full logs to the Conquered for review 3 times. You never replied." She turned to the full chamber now, her voice rising just enough to be heard clearly by all. Humanity has never broken the Prime Accords. We signed them willingly. We've upheld them in peace and in war. When the Void Swarm came, who stood on the front lines? Humans. When the plague spread, who delivered the cure across 50 systems? Humans. And now, because you fear a name you don't understand, you accuse us of being monsters. Stepped closer to the edge of the platform. Words are wind, General, but your ships carry teeth. We have seen your shipyards double in size. We have tracked your secret fleet movements. You prepare for something. And if it is not dread, then what is it? Didn't flinch. Defense, always defense. You know why? Because every time we reach out in peace, someone like you calls us a threat. So we build walls, not to attack, but to keep our children safe. For a moment, the chamber was quiet, truly quiet. Even the hum of the anti-platforms seemed to fade. Then a voice from the back, a young delegate from the moss-covered world of spoke softly. But if dread isn't real, why do your own people speak of it in nightmares? Look toward the sound. Her voice softened just a little. Because fear spreads faster than truth. On Earth, we once feared dragons. We painted them on cave walls, told stories of their fire, but we never built one. We just feared what we didn't understand. She turned back to, "You're doing the same thing. You've turned a story into a sword and you're aiming it at us." His face darkened. "Enough talk. The Council must act. I move for immediate sanctions. All human worlds placed under Dominion blockade until General is surrendered for trial, and all human warships are to be disarmed." A wave of agreement rose from his allies. Broad-shouldered warlords from the Iron Clans, cold-eyed technocrats from the synth hegemony, and others who had long humanity's rapid rise. The speaker looked troubled. "This is extreme, the vote must be." But before she could finish, alarms blared through the chamber. Red light pulsed along the ceiling. Emergency glyphs flickered in every language. An officer rushed onto the platform, whispering urgently into his ear. His eyes widened, then narrowed with triumph. He turned to the chamber again, his voice ringing with false sorrow. "Even now, as we speak of peace, humanity strikes. A Dominion supply convoy near Gamma has been disabled. No casualties, but all systems wiped clean. Signature matches the so-called stealth tech General described. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" His blood ran cold. She knew nothing of this attack, but she recognized the pattern. Someone was framing them, or worse, someone within human command had acted without orders. But she couldn't show doubt, not here, not now. She met his gaze without blinking. "If that's true, then investigate it. Don't punish a species for the act of one rogue ship. That's not justice. That's fear wearing a crown." Smiled a slow, cruel curve of his lipless mouth. "Fear? No, General, this is order, and order demands sacrifice." He turned to the speaker. "Call for the vote now." The speaker hesitated, then nodded. "All in favor of provisional sanctions against United Terran Command, raise your emblems." One by one, glowing symbols rose into the air. Blue, green, crimson, more than half. Enough. Watched face unreadable. Inside, her mind was already moving. Diplomacy had failed. Now only strength would speak. As the vote concluded, turned toward her one last time. "Surrender peacefully, General, for the sake of your people." Didn't answer. She simply turned and walked out of the chamber, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor. Behind her, the galaxy burned with suspicion. Ahead of her, the stars waited. And somewhere deep in the black, her fleet waited too. She had no mythical weapon, no planet cracker, no ghost engine of doom. But she had something worse. She had truth. And she had wrath. And she would not let them confuse the two. The truth about dread began long before the Galactic Council ever heard the name. On old Earth, during the Mars Secession Wars, back when humanity still fought over rocks and air, the term Dreadnought Battalion was just slang. Soldiers used it to describe the fastest, toughest strike teams. They hit hard, vanished fast, and left silence in their wake. Over time, the words blurred. Dreadnought Battalion became Dread, then Dread in the mouths of traders, pirates, and scared children on colony worlds. By the time human ships reached the outer arms of the galaxy, the story had grown teeth. Dread was no longer a unit, it was a weapon, a black sun in a box, a scream made of metal, a thing that ate planets and spat out dust. No one knew it was just a name. Now aboard the human flagship Dauntless, orbiting far beyond Neptune's frozen rings, General sat alone in her war room. Star maps floated around her like ghosts. Reports scrolled on every screen. The Dominion blockade had already begun. Food shipments to New Shanghai and Epsilon Haven were stopped. Medical supplies couldn't get through. Children were going hungry, not because of war, but because of fear. She rubbed her temples. Her coffee had gone cold. At her door, a soft chime sounded. "Enter," she said. Captain Tao stepped in. Young, sharp-eyed, born on Luna, he'd flown with her since the Void Swarm conflict. He didn't salute, just nodded, respectful but familiar. "They're calling it the Quiet Siege," he said, handing her a data slate. "No shots fired, just silence, like they're waiting for us to break." Tap the slate. "They think fear will make us beg. They're wrong." Hesitated. "There's more." Intel intercepted a Dominion broadcast, calling the attack on the supply convoy a human declaration of war. He's using it to rally the Iron Clans. They're mobilizing. She walked to the window. Outside, the blackness of space glittered with distant suns. Closer, the sleek shapes of human warships hung in formation, silent, ready. "Was it us?" she asked quietly. "The convoy attack?" Shook his head. "No, deep scan logs show the signal that disabled the Dominion ships used old command codes, ones only their own high command should have. It was staged. They did it to look like us." Exhaled slowly. So it was a trap from the start, not just fear, strategy. Wasn't just scared of humanity, he wanted them gone. Forever. "Then we don't play his game," she said. "What do we do?" asked. She turned to him, eyes hard but calm. "We show them what we really are." 2 days later, deep in the belt, the Ghost Fleet assembled. It wasn't a real fleet, not in the way the Dominion imagined. Just 50 ships, modified corvettes, old destroyers refitted with new tech, and one experimental command cruiser, Dauntless herself. But what they lacked in numbers, they made up in something the galaxy had never seen: human ingenuity. Their secret wasn't a weapon, it was connection. While alien fleets relied on rigid command chains and slow relay systems, human ships used neural-linked crews. Pilots shared thoughts in real time. Engineers adjusted shields before damage even hit. AI didn't control them, it worked with them, like a sixth sense. And their stealth wasn't just about hiding, it was about misdirection. Using quantum jamming fields, they could make sensors see ships that weren't there, or hide ships that were. To alien eyes, human tactics looked like magic, or madness. Stood on the bridge watching her fleet form up. No fanfare, no speeches, just quiet readiness. "Final check," she said. "All systems green," replied. "Quantum shroud online, neural sync at 98%. "Good," she paused. "Remember, this isn't about fighting. Not yet, this is about truth. We show them we're not monsters, we show them we're precise, we're smart, and we're not afraid." The fleet vanished. Not with a flash, but with a ripple, a distortion in space so faint, only the most advanced human sensors could track it. To the rest of the galaxy, they simply ceased to exist. Their first stop, the Dominion's outer defense ring near. The Dominion had built 12 orbital platforms there, massive stations bristling with plasma cannons and shield generators. Each was said to be able to hold off 100 ships. They were symbols of power, untouchable. At 300 Terran standard, the Ghost Fleet arrived. No alarms sounded, no shields flared. The quantum shroud bent sensor waves around them like water around a stone. gave the order. One by one, human drones, no bigger than birds, drifted toward the platforms. They carried no explosives. Instead, they carried code. Human code, clean, sharp, and fast. The Dominion systems were ancient, built on strict hierarchies. Every command had to pass through 10 layers of approval. Human tech didn't wait, it didn't ask, it acted. In under 3 minutes, all 12 platforms went dark, not destroyed, just offline. Lights out, guns silent, life support still running, no one hurt. Then, from the Dauntless, a signal went out, not to the Dominion, but to every news network in the Concord. Footage played across 1,000,000 screens. Not of war, not of fire, but of humans. A medic from Titan Station, handing water to a wounded laborer during a mining collapse. Engineers from New Mumbai rebuilding a cracked aqueduct on the desert world of H, side by side with locals. A human teacher on Epsilon Haven reading stories to orphaned children of 6 different species. And then General appeared on screen. No uniform this time, just her face, tired, real. "You think we are monsters because of a name," she said. "But look at what we do when no one is watching. We help, we build, we heal. That is who we are." She paused. The silence felt heavier than any shout. "But if you keep calling us monsters, then one day we might stop caring what you think." The feed cut. Across the galaxy, millions watched. Some cried, some doubted, but many began to wonder. Back in the belt, the Ghost Fleet reformed. No losses, no shots fired. "Looked at, do you think it worked?" She stared at the stars. "It doesn't matter if they believe us yet. What matters is they saw us. And now they know we can reach them anytime, anywhere, without killing a single soul." That night, reports poured in. On 3 Dominion worlds, protests broke out. Citizens demanded answers. Why blockade humans if they were helping? Why fear them? Control began to crack. But knew it wasn't over. Wouldn't back down, he'd double down, he'd call this a trick, a show. And he'd come for Earth. She turned to her crew, prep Project Icarus, full activation sequence. His eyes widened. "You're really going to do it?" She nodded. "Let them fear what they don't understand, but this time we'll give them something real to see." Deep in the ship's core, engineers began powering up the gravimetric mirrors, experimental devices designed to bend light and gravity. Not for war, for theater, for truth wrapped in shadow. Because sometimes, to prove you're not a monster, you have to look like one first. And humanity had always been good at playing roles. Especially when the galaxy was watching. As the Dauntless turned toward the inner rim, thought of her grandmother who'd survived the Jakarta floods. She used to say, "The strongest trees don't fight the wind. They bend, then stand taller after." Humanity had bent for long enough. Now it was time to stand. And let the galaxy feel the weight of their shadow. Not as a weapon, but as a warning. We are here. We are human. And we will not be erased by lies. The broadcast from General spread like fire across the galaxy. It played in market squares on moss-covered, echoed through crystal halls on, and flickered on cracked screens in Dominion labor camps. For the first time, many aliens saw humans not as soldiers or conquerors, but as people. People who shared food, fixed broken things, and held crying children who weren't even their own. But High Sovereign did not watch it. He refused. Instead, he stood in his war chamber aboard the Eternal Edict, his flagship, surrounded by loyal commanders whose faces showed no doubt, only obedience. "They are trying to soften us," he growled, slamming a clawed fist onto the obsidian table. "This is weakness dressed as kindness, a trick." His top general, Vex, dared to speak. "Sire, the footage was, those events happened. Human medics did save miners on Helios 4. They didn't have to." His eyes burned red. "Mercy is a luxury for the safe. We are not safe, not while they have dread." He didn't believe the weapon was a myth. To him, the Ghost Fleet's silent strike on the defense platforms was proof enough. How else could 50 ships disable 12 fortresses without a single shot? Only a weapon like Dread could do that. So he made his decision. "Order the full armada," he said. "All Dominion fleets, target Sol system, we will take Earth, not to destroy it, to cage it. Humanity ends as a threat today." Across 100 shipyards, engines roared to life. Millions of soldiers prepared. The largest fleet in Dominion history began to move, 5,000 warships, each carrying enough fire to glass a continent. Back on Earth, the United Terran Command scrambled. Panic spread through cities. Evacuation drills began. But in the hidden orbital dock known as Forge Station, General remained calm. She watched the Dominion fleet movements on her main screen. Their path was clear, direct, arrogant. They expected her to hide, to beg, to surrender. She did none of those things. Instead, she gave one order: begin the broadcast. Across every open channel, military, civilian, even pirate nets, a single image appeared: General standing alone on the bridge of the Dauntless. No backdrop, no effects, just her in her gray uniform, hands clasped behind her back. "I speak not as a soldier," she said, "but as a human." Her voice was quiet, but every word cut through the noise of war. "You accuse us of having a weapon called Dread. You say it devours worlds. You say it obeys me." She paused, looked directly into the lens, into the eyes of every being watching. "It doesn't exist." A ripple went through the galaxy. Even watching now against his will, leaned forward. "We never built it," continued. "We never wanted it. The name came from old Earth wars, just a nickname for fast ships, nothing more. You turned a story into a reason to hate us." She took a step closer to the screen. "But since you insist on fearing us, let me show you what real human power looks like." The view behind her shifted. Stars, then ships, dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. A massive human fleet filled the screen, dark and silent, engines cold, weapons dark. The Dominion commanders watching froze. How? Human shipyards couldn't produce this many ships this fast. But it wasn't real. It was Project Icarus. Using gravimetric mirrors and light-bending fields, the Ghost Fleet had created an illusion, projecting phantom ships across multiple star systems at once. To sensors, to eyes, to fear-addled minds, it looked like an armada of 10,000 human warships, ready to strike. Let the image linger, then she spoke again. "This is not a threat. It is a mirror. You see what you fear, but look closer." The Phantom Fleet dissolved. Now the screen showed footage, real footage from the past 50 years. Human engineers helping rebuild after the Tarsi's quake. Human pilots diverting a comet that would have hit a farm world. Human scientists sharing clean energy tech with starving colonies. No charge, no strings. "We give," said softly. "Even when you curse our name, even when you call us monsters, we still give." Then her voice dropped, not loud, not angry, but sharp as broken glass. "But if you come to our home with fire, we will not kneel, we will not run, and we will not forget." She looked straight ahead. "Because the moment you choose war, you choose to meet the part of us you made up in your nightmares." The broadcast ended. Silence fell across the galaxy. In Dominion ranks, some captains hesitated. Whispers spread. What if she's telling the truth? What if Dread is just us? But was not shaken. He saw only deceit. "She thinks images will stop steel," he snarled. "Fool, let her play with shadows, we bring thunder." His fleet pushed forward, faster now, closer to Sol. Yet something had changed. On the fringes of Dominion space, slave miners began to sabotage drills. Signal relays failed. Supply lines jammed. Revolts, small at first, flickered like sparks in dry grass. The footage of human kindness had planted seeds, and seeds grow. On Earth gathered her crew. We've shown them truth, she said. Now we show them unity. She sent encrypted messages, not just to human colonies but to alien worlds that had once helped them or been helped by them, to the moss farmers, to the water keepers, to the exiled engineers of H. And one by one, replies came back. Not armies, not weapons, but support. A freighter rerouted medical supplies through hidden lanes. A priest broadcast prayers for peace across neutral channels. H rebels leaked Dominion patrol routes to human scouts. Humanity wasn't alone. Stood at her window again, watching the stars, joined her. They're still coming, he said. I know, she replied. Do you think they'll listen? She smiled faintly, not all of them, but enough. Then she turned, her eyes hardening. Prep the fleet, not for battle, for stand. What kind of stand? Asked. The kind where you don't fire a shot, but make them wish they never came. Deep in space, near the gas giant Helios 7, the ghost fleet took position. Not hiding, not running, just waiting. And as the first edges of Armada entered the system, every human ship powered up, not weapons but projectors. And once more, across every Dominion screen, General appeared. This time she didn't speak. She just stood. Behind her the phantom fleet shimmered, vast, endless, silent. And in that silence, every Dominion soldier felt something they hadn't felt in centuries. Doubt. Because the humans hadn't attacked. They hadn't lied. They had simply shown up. And stood their ground. Not as monsters, but as guardians. And in that moment, the myth of dread began to die. Not with a bang, but with a human woman standing tall saying, we are here, and we choose peace unless you force our hand. The galaxy held its breath. And for the first time, the humans weren't the ones afraid. The Dominion Armada filled the space near Helios 7 like a storm cloud made of steel. 5,000 warships, their hulls from past conquests, their weapons humming with stored fury. At their head, the Eternal Edict glowed with dark energy, its command deck alive with tension. High Sovereign stood at the front, claws gripping the railing, eyes fixed on the tiny cluster of human ships ahead. They looked so small, so fragile. Yet they did not flee. They did not hide. They simply floated there, silent and still like stones in a river. Expected fire. He expected chaos. He expected the mythical dread to tear open space and swallow his fleet whole. Instead, there was nothing. No weapons charged. No engines flared. Only that image, General, still playing on every open channel, her face calm, her eyes saying more than words ever could. Turn it off, snapped. His tech officer obeyed, but the damage was done. Around the fleet, murmurs spread. Young pilots exchanged glances. Veterans tightened their grips, not from readiness but from unease. Why weren't the humans fighting? On the Dauntless, watched the Dominion fleet through her main viewport. She saw their formation tight, rigid, built for crushing weaker foes. But rigid things break when bent. Activate the mirror array, she said. I, General, replied. Deep in the Dauntless's core, engineers flipped the final switches. Around the small human fleet, gravimetric mirrors unfolded, thin rings of alloy that bent light and gravity like ripples in water. With perfect timing, they activated. Suddenly, the Phantom fleet returned, not just ahead but everywhere. On Dominion scanners, human ships appeared behind them. Above them, below, thousands of them, engines cold, weapons dark, but present. An admiral shouted into his comms, "They're surrounding us, how?" "They're not real," another yelled, "it's a trick." But it didn't matter. Fear doesn't care about truth. It only cares about what it sees. On the Eternal Edict roared, "Fire, destroy them all." But before the order could be carried out, alarms blared, not from outside but from within. "Sire," a bridge officer cried. "Revolts on Prime Station and the Helios labor camps. The workers, they've taken control of the power grids. Froze. It wasn't just one planet. It was dozens. The footage of human kindness had done more than spread doubt. It had given hope. And hope in the hands of the oppressed is more dangerous than any weapon. Cut all internal feeds, he ordered. Lock down the rebel sectors. But it was too late. The Dominion's own people were rising, and they weren't alone. From hidden corners of the galaxy, small ships, freighters, scouts, even fishing boats began to move. Not to fight, just to watch. Moss sailors, water pilots, age refugees. They formed a ring far behind the human fleet, silent witnesses to what came next. Saw them on her screen. A lump rose in her throat. They weren't soldiers. They were ordinary beings who chose to stand with truth. She turned to, now we show them the real plan. He nodded, Project Verity. Yes. Project Verity wasn't a weapon. It was a record, a full data burst, containing every peace offer humanity had sent in the last century, every offer ignored, every rescue mission they'd flown for alien worlds, every time they'd shared tech, food, medicine, without asking for anything in return. And at the end, a final file, raw, unedited logs from the so-called Dread test near expanse, clear proof it was just stealth tech, and proof the Dominion had faked the convoy attack using their own codes. Sent the data, not just to the Dominion fleet, but to every news network, every free system, every hidden rebel cell. The truth went viral in minutes. On the bridge of a destroyer, a young officer named Vex, distant cousin to General, read the files. Her hands shook. She had joined the fleet to protect her people. But now she saw the enemy wasn't humanity. It was the lie. She opened a private channel to other junior officers. We've been used, she whispered. Started this, not them. Similar conversations happened on dozens of ships. Back on the Eternal Edict sensed the shift. His captains hesitated. His comms buzzed with confusion. General, he barked, order all forward batteries to fire on the Dauntless, now. Vex stood still. For the first time in his life, he didn't obey. Sire, he said quietly, if they truly had dread, we'd already be dust. But they haven't fired, not once. Maybe they're telling the truth. His face twisted in rage. Traitor. He reached for his sidearm, a plasma blade, but before he could draw it, the ship shuddered. Not from weapons, from inside. The Eternal Edict's engine sputtered, lights flickered, the great warship groaned like a dying beast. What's happening? Screamed. Sabotage, an engineer yelled. The lower decks, they've cut the main power relay. It was the work of, and others like her, crew members who had seen the truth and chose to act. On the Dauntless, watched the Eternal Edict drift, its lights dimming. They're turning on him, said amazed. Not us, replied. Themselves, we just gave them the mirror. She opened a new channel, this time not to the whole galaxy, but directly to the Dominion fleet. Soldiers of the Dominion, she said, her voice calm but strong. You were told we are monsters, but monsters don't show mercy. Monsters don't send proof. Monsters don't stand still while you point guns at them. She paused. We are not your enemy. Your enemy is the one who lied to you, who used your loyalty to build his throne on fear. Then she did something no one expected. She powered down the Phantom fleet. The mirrors went dark. The illusion vanished. Now only 50 human ships remained, small, real, and completely unarmed. We trust you, she said. Now show us you can trust yourselves. Silence. Then, one by one, Dominion ships began to power down their weapons. First a frigate, then a cruiser, then 10 more. The rebellion wasn't just on planets anymore. It was in space. Now half-blind with fury tried to regain control. He ordered loyal ships to fire on the rebels, but many refused. Some even turned their guns on him. The Eternal Edict, once the symbol of Dominion power, became a prison for its own king. Watched it all unfold. She felt no joy, only sorrow. War always costs, even when you win without firing. Looked at her, what now? Now, she said, we help them rebuild, not as conquerors, as friends. She sent a new signal, to the rebel officers, to Vex, to the rising voices of change. Humanity offers aid, food, medics, engineers, no strings, no demands, just help. And across the Dominion, weary beings heard those words and believed them. Because this time there was no myth, no weapon, just humans doing what they always did best. Showing up, not with wrath, but with grace. And in that moment, the galaxy began to heal. Not because one side won, but because both sides chose to see each other clearly. And that was more powerful than any dread could ever be. The battle was over before it truly began. No ships exploded, no cities burned, no planets cracked under the weight of war. Instead, silence settled over the Helios 7 system like morning mist, soft, surprising, and full of waiting. High Sovereign stood alone in the dimmed command chamber of the Eternal Edict. The great throne room, once filled with shouting admirals and bowing servants, was empty. His loyal guards had laid down their weapons. His war council had walked out. Even the ship's AI no longer responded to his voice. He was not deposed by force. He was abandoned by truth. Outside, human medics in small shuttles docked with Dominion vessels, not as victors but as helpers. They brought medicine for injured crew, clean water, and food packs stamped with the Terran sun and olive branch emblem. No one shot at them. No one even raised a voice. General watched from the bridge of the Dauntless. Her fleet still floated near the gas giant, engines quiet, weapons cold. She had not fired a single shot, and yet she had won something far greater than a battle. Tau stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes wide. "They're really accepting our aid," he said, as if still unable to believe it. "Because they're tired," replied. "Tired of fear, tired of lies, tired of kings who feed on both." She turned away from the view and walked to her comm station. A message blinked, urgent, encrypted, from the Galactic Council speaker. "They want you at Prime," said, reading over her shoulder, "for the trial." Nodded, she knew this day would come. 2 weeks later, the Grand Chamber of Prime was full again, but the air felt different, lighter, less heavy with suspicion. The human delegation pod was no longer at the back. It had been moved to the center. Stood in the accused circle, bound not by chains but by his own choices. He wore simple gray robes now, no horns polished, no crown. Just a fallen king, small in the face of history. But the judges were not humans, not even aliens from powerful empires. They were the ones had silenced for generations. Workers from mines, farmers from engineers from, teachers from, ordinary beings who had lived under his rule and suffered for it. The council had agreed. If would be judged, it would be by those he hurt most. General sat in the front row, not as prosecutor but as witness. The trial lasted 3 days. Evidence was shown. Voices were heard. Tears were shed. Tried to speak of glory, of order, of the greater good. But his words rang hollow against the testimonies of children who had never seen sunlight, of elders who starved while his fleets feasted. In the end, the verdict was simple: guilty of tyranny, deception, and crimes against peace. When asked what punishment he deserved, the lead judge, an elder named Myra who had lost 2 sons to Dominion labor camps, did not call for death. "Let him live," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Let him see the world he tried to crush rise without him." Was taken away, not to a prison, but to a quiet moon where he would spend his days helping rebuild what he broke, under the watchful eyes of those he once ruled. After the trial, the council speaker called for a new vote. This time it was not about sanctions, it was about change. A new charter was proposed, the concord of equals. No more blockades based on fear, no more secret wars. All species, great or small, would have equal voice. and humanity, once feared as unpredictable and dangerous, was asked to help write the rules. Delegates turned too. Will humanity join this new council? The speaker asked. She looked around the chamber, not with pride but with quiet respect. Humanity has always believed in fairness, she said, but we do not seek seats of power, we seek partners in peace. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room. Then she added, we will help build this new Concord, but not from a throne, from the front lines where help is needed most. She declined the offer of permanent council membership. Instead, she proposed something else, a human aid and defense pact open to all, bound by no empire, powered only by shared trust. Many species agreed that day, not because they feared humanity, but because they finally understood them. After the session walked alone through the high gardens of Prime. Flowers from 100 worlds bloomed around her, some glowing, some singing faint notes in the wind, some simply soft to the touch. A child ran past, laughing, chasing a floating light. For a moment the general smiled. Then her comm beeped. It was, ma'am, the Dauntless is ready, the fleet's waiting. She looked up at the sky. Through the transparent dome, stars glimmered like old friends. I'm coming, she said. Back aboard her ship, her crew stood at attention, but not in fear, in readiness. We've been recalled to Sol, she told them. There's work to do, farms to rebuild on Epsilon Haven, shields to upgrade on New Shanghai, and a new school on Titan Station that needs teachers. No one saluted, they just nodded. This was their duty, not war, life. As the Dauntless lifted from Prime's dock, stood on the bridge, watching the planet shrink behind them. Joined her, you know they'll call you a hero, right? She shook her head. Heroes fight monsters, we just refuse to become one. The ship entered the void. The stars welcomed them home. In the weeks that followed, the myth of dread faded. Scholars wrote new records. Children learned the truth in schools. And across the galaxy, when someone spoke of humanity, they no longer whispered in fear. They spoke with respect. Because humanity never had a doomsday weapon. They had something far more powerful. Choice. The choice to show mercy when wrath would have been easier. The choice to speak truth when lies would have won the day. The choice to stand, not to dominate but to protect. And in the end, that was enough. Far out in deep space, the Dauntless sailed on, small against the endless dark. No banners, no fanfare, just a ship, a crew, and a mission, to be human. Not perfect, not all-powerful, but good. And in a galaxy full of kings and empires and ancient fears, that was the rarest thing of all. General looked out at the stars and knew peace was not the end of war. It was the beginning of something better. And humanity would be there for every step of it. Not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as neighbors, as friends, as guardians of the light.